Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we lift our hearts and turn our eyes to a truth often overlooked, yet deeply powerful, a truth carried quietly in the soul of a woman who sleeps alone with no husband. She is not a woman to be pitied, nor is she to be judged by the absence of a ring or a name beside hers on a mailbox. No, she is a woman who walks with unseen strength, who carries with her the quiet dignity of one who has learned to lean not on the presence of another, but on the everlasting arms of grace. She may sit in silence at the table, her hands wrapped around a cup of coffee with no conversation to fill the air but her own thoughts. But oh, how powerful those thoughts can become when refined through solitude. For in the stillness of the night she is not alone. There is a presence that fills every empty space, a comfort that wraps around her like a warm blanket when the world grows cold. Her worth is not diminished by the absence of a man. Her value is not determined by marital status. She is not incomplete. She is whole and wholly loved, for there is one who knows her name, who sees every tear, who hears every whispered prayer from the corner of her bed. And in his eyes she is precious. She is strong not because she must be, but because she has discovered a well of strength that does not run dry. She has faced nights of aching and mornings of quiet resolve. She has chosen faith over fear, peace over panic, and though the world may not see the battle she fights or the victories she wins behind closed doors, heaven does. So to the woman who sleeps alone tonight, whether by choice, by loss, or by circumstance, you are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. You are walking a path carved by courage, and each step is seen, each breath is sacred, each lonely hour is held in hands far greater than your own. Keep walking, keep believing. Keep shining. A woman's worth is not defined by marital status. This truth, while simple on the surface, carries within it a profound and often countercultural message. One that echoes through the corridors of time and speaks to the heart of identity, dignity, and purpose. For generations, societies across the world have placed tremendous weight on the idea that a woman's value is intrinsically linked to her relationship with a man, whether she is a daughter, a wife, a mother, or a widow. Cultural expectations, traditions, and even well-meaning voices within families and communities have reinforced the notion that until a woman is married, she has not yet arrived, not yet become all she was meant to be. But this is not the truth. A woman's worth is not bound to her proximity to a man. It does not hinge upon the presence of a husband beside her, nor does it diminish in his absence. Her value was not initiated at the altar, and it will not fade with the silence of an empty room. Her identity was not birthed in the eyes of another, but in the heart of her Creator. Her purpose was not postponed until a wedding day. It was placed in her before she ever took her first breath. We live in a world that markets the idea that fulfillment, security, and significance come from being chosen by another person. Romantic love is exalted as the pinnacle of achievement, as if a woman's life only begins when someone else sees her and calls her their own. This mindset has created undue pressure, unspoken shame, and quiet sorrow in the hearts of many women who find themselves unmarried, whether by waiting, by choice, or by loss. And yet the truth remains, her worth is not dictated by her relationship status. A woman who stands alone is not a woman who is lacking. She is not a half waiting to be made whole. She is not incomplete, unfinished, or left behind. She is, in every sense, a full and beautiful expression of life, strength, and purpose. She has her own voice, her own dreams, her own calling. She walks with wisdom learned through trials and triumphs. She carries within her a story that is no less rich, no less valid, no less impactful than the story of a woman with a ring on her finger. In the silence of a house with no footsteps but her own, she learns to hear the still small voice of God. In the quiet of the night, she discovers the richness of her own company. In the absence of external affirmation, she finds an unshakable identity rooted in something far deeper than fleeting affection or social status. She learns that self-worth is not a gift another human being can give her, but a truth she must claim for herself over and over again. Some may look at her life and wonder what she's waiting for, but perhaps she's not waiting at all. Perhaps she's living fully, deeply, and intentionally, refusing to settle for anything less than love that honors her. Perhaps she's chosen a different path, not because she could not have another, but because she has chosen authenticity over conformity, depth over appearance, and calling over convenience. Or perhaps life simply unfolded in ways she did not plan, and yet she walks forward in courage, refusing to let unmet expectations define her joy. We must stop measuring a woman's success by whether or not she's been chosen by someone else. Her value is not a prize handed out at the altar. It is inherent, sacred, and independent of another person's recognition. The world may overlook the quiet strength of a woman who lives alone, but heaven does not. Every act of faithfulness, every sacrifice made in silence, every moment she rises from the bed and chooses hope over despair is seen and celebrated. To equate marriage with worth is to ignore the vast richness of human experience. There are women who are wives and yet feel unseen. There are women who are alone and yet deeply content. Worth is not found in who shares your last name, but in who you are when no one else is watching. It is in how you love others, how you carry burdens, how you serve without recognition. It is in your resilience, your faith, your honesty, your grace. There is a sacred strength in a woman who knows her value apart from anyone else's opinion. She walks into rooms without needing to prove anything. She holds her head high not because she thinks herself better, but because she knows she is beloved. Her identity is not a performance, it is a posture of truth. She understands that to be single is not to be less, and to be unmarried is not to be unworthy. Let us speak with clarity. Marriage is a beautiful gift, but it is not a reward for being good enough, and singleness is not a punishment for failing. Both are seasons, both are callings, both are places where a woman can live out her purpose in full measure. There are women who will mother nations and lead movements, whose lives will shape the next generation without ever having a husband beside them. And there are women whose marriages are ministries, through which they shine light into their homes and communities. Neither is superior, both are sacred. The danger lies in placing more honor on one than the other. In doing so, we inadvertently suggest that one life is more meaningful than another. We teach young girls that their greatest achievement is to be chosen, when instead we should be teaching them they are already chosen, by a love that is eternal and unchanging. We teach them to wait for a prince, instead of equipping them to live as queens, daughters of the Most High, whether or not a crown ever graces their heads. A woman alone is still a woman of impact. Her prayers matter. Her presence matters, her laughter, her insight, her generosity. They ripple through the world in ways she may never fully see. She builds, she creates, she nurtures. She writes books, leads teams, comforts friends, mentors the next generation, tends to the broken-hearted. She embodies compassion, she champions justice, she shows up even when no one is watching, and in all of this she reflects the image of God just as fully, just as gloriously as any other woman. To understand this truth is to dismantle centuries of cultural conditioning. It is to look at a woman and see her not as someone defined by who she's with, but by who she is. It is to honor her space at the table, even if it has no companion chair beside it. It is to celebrate her milestones, not with the caveat of still waiting, but with the full recognition that she is living a story that matters, right now, just as she is. There is something beautiful about a woman who refuses to let the world rush her, who does not apologize for her season, who does not chase timelines that were never hers to begin with. She walks with an inner compass, trusting that her life is not on pause, but unfolding with divine purpose. She no longer believes the lie that she is less than because she sleeps alone. She understands that she is surrounded by a love that surpasses human understanding, a love that fills every quiet space with peace, every uncertain step with strength. Her bed may be empty, but her life is not. Her nights may be quiet, but her soul is full. She is not waiting to begin, she is already becoming. She is not half of a whole, she is a radiant, living testimony of grace and grit. She is not a footnote to someone else's story. She is the author of her own, written in courage, in compassion, in faith. To those who look upon her and see only loneliness, look again. There is wisdom in her eyes and purpose in her stride. There is no absence where presence lives in such abundance. She is not defined by who lies beside her, but by who walks within her. Her worth is not something to be proven. It is something to be believed. This truth must not only be spoken. It must be lived, taught, and passed on. It must be rooted in the hearts of young girls before the world has a chance to tell them otherwise. It must be proclaimed over the lives of women of all ages, reminding them that their worth was never up for debate. That no matter what society says, they are valuable, not because of a status they hold, but because of a truth that never changes. They are fearfully and wonderfully made. They are whole, they are strong, and they are worthy. Solitude can be a source of strength and spiritual depth. While the world may view solitude as a lack, as a void to be filled, in truth, it can be the very space where the soul is most refined. A woman who sleeps alone and wakes to a house quiet except for the sound of her own footsteps is not necessarily lonely. She may be walking in one of the most sacred seasons of her life, where she is learning to hear with clarity, to see with fresh eyes, and to feel with a heart no longer clouded by noise and distraction. Solitude has long been the environment where transformation takes place. The prophets of old did not receive their revelations in the crowd, but in the wilderness. The stillness of solitude often becomes the very ground where purpose is revealed. For a woman walking through a season alone, it may not be what she expected, but it can be where she discovers who she truly is. In the silence, she is not abandoned, she is invited to listen deeper, to grow stronger, and to know her own voice apart from the echo of others. There is a difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness is an ache, but solitude can be a gift. It is not imposed exile, but a holy invitation. Solitude strips away performance. It removes the masks we wear for others, and lays bare who we are when no one is watching. And in that place a woman may discover her truest strength, not the strength that wins applause, but the strength that endures in the quiet, the kind that holds steady when there is no one to lean on but God. In solitude, a woman can cultivate spiritual roots that reach deeper than surface-level affirmations. Without distraction, she is more aware of her own soul's condition. The longings, the fears, the dreams she once buried beneath busyness rise to the surface. This is not weakness, it is growth. It is the work of the Spirit drawing her toward healing, honesty, and wholeness. Solitude has a way of refining faith, revealing the idols we cling to, and replacing them with a faith that is not based on feelings but on truth. Strength built in solitude is not loud, but it is lasting. It's the kind of strength that enables her to face life's storms with peace. She has learned to pray not just when she is desperate, but as a way of life. She has learned that the presence of God is not confined to a church pew or a gathering of others. It fills her kitchen, her car, her living room. Her prayers are not crafted to impress. They are raw and real, formed in the space between tears and trust. And it is in that private place that she becomes unshakable, not because life is easy, but because she has learned that even when all else is silent, God still speaks. Solitude also brings clarity. When the voices of the world are turned down, when she's no longer comparing her life to others, she begins to see her own path more clearly. She is no longer running someone else's race, no longer bound by the urgency of expectations. She begins to listen to the deeper questions: who am I? What am I here for? What does it mean to live a life of purpose, not just success? And in answering those questions, she becomes anchored, no longer tossed by every opinion or trend. she begins to build her life on something eternal. In the quiet, she may also confront wounds she has avoided. Solitude does not let us hide, but neither does it shame us. It gives space for healing. In the quiet hours when there's no one else to distract her, she may remember the disappointments, the heartbreaks, the dreams deferred. But those moments, painful as they are also holy, for it is in bringing those wounds into the light that healing begins. She cries, but not as one without hope. She grieves, but she does not grieve alone. And with every tear strength grows, not the strength of denial, but the strength of redemption. Time alone becomes time with God. In solitude, worship becomes less about songs and more about surrender. Scripture is no longer a checklist, but a lifeline. A verse may sit in her heart for days, speaking louder than a sermon. A single whisper from God can become the anchor she holds onto for weeks. She begins to treasure these moments not as signs of isolation, but as glimpses into the mystery of divine communion. She realizes that in the stillness she is being formed, not to impress, but to endure, not to perform, but to abide. There is also freedom in solitude. Free from the need to please others, she can ask herself what she truly wants, who she truly is. She may discover new passions, rediscover old dreams, or awaken to a sense of calling she never knew existed. The woman who once feared being alone now finds strength in the very space she once dreaded. She finds herself not simply passing time, but becoming someone, more grounded, more aware, more alive. In solitude, she learns to befriend herself. This may be the hardest lesson of all. So many run from solitude because they cannot stand to be alone with their thoughts. But she begins to understand that her soul is worth knowing. She stops judging herself so harshly. She speaks with kindness in her inner voice. She allows herself to rest, to breathe, to not always be achieving. In this space, self-compassion grows, and with it, a quiet confidence. She does not need someone else to tell her she matters. She has come to believe it herself. Solitude also creates space for discernment. When a woman is not constantly surrounded by noise, she is better able to recognize what is real and what is not. She begins to detect the difference between good opportunities and divine assignments. She no longer says yes to everything out of fear of missing out or disappointing others. She becomes more intentional, more focused. Her time becomes sacred, her boundaries clear. In solitude, she gains wisdom, the kind that sees beneath the surface and makes decisions rooted in peace, not pressure. And while the world may question her joy, she knows something deeper. Her joy is not tied to external validation. It flows from within, from a well that solitude has helped her uncover. Her laughter is genuine because it is not performance. Her contentment is real because it is not dependent. Her peace is durable because it is not circumstantial. She has learned the secret that eludes so many, that joy is not found in the presence of others, but in the presence of God. This kind of spiritual depth does not happen overnight. It is cultivated slowly, patiently, in the dailiness of quiet moments. In morning coffee shared with Scripture, in long walks with honest thoughts, in whispered prayers over dishes and folded laundry. It is formed not in the extraordinary, but in the ordinary rhythms of life lived with intentional presence. And in time, that presence becomes power, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that endures, uplifts, and sustains. A woman who has walked through solitude and embraced its refining fire emerges different. She may look the same on the outside, but there is a strength in her that cannot be faked. She has faced herself and not turned away. She has wrestled with doubt and come out with faith. She has learned that the silence of solitude is not empty, but filled with the whispers of God guiding her, shaping her, calling her. Her solitude becomes a sanctuary, not because life is perfect, but because it is real. She no longer needs to rush into relationships to prove her desirability. She no longer fears being alone. She is not desperate. She is discerning. She is not lacking. She is overflowing. because in solitude she has encountered the truth, she is enough. She is loved, she is called, she is strong, not in spite of her solitude, but because of it, and so she walks differently. She moves through the world with a quiet assurance. She listens more than she speaks. She acts from conviction, not compulsion. Her time alone has not made her distant. It has made her deeper. She shows up for others not from a place of need, but from a place of abundance. She can give without losing herself. She can love without losing her peace. This is the gift of solitude. It is not just a season to endure, but a place to be transformed. It is the sacred soil where strength grows in silence, where faith is tested and proved, where identity is clarified and calling is confirmed. It is not an absence, but a presence, the presence of becoming, of deepening, of knowing God and knowing oneself. Solitude can be a source of strength and spiritual depth for any woman willing to embrace it, not as punishment, but as preparation, not as isolation, but as invitation. In that space she finds that the quiet is not something to fear, but something to welcome, for it is there, in the quiet, that she discovers the power of a life grounded not in the presence of others, but in the presence of the one who never leaves. Divine presence offers comfort, value, and unseen support. In a world that often equates visibility with worth, it can be difficult to grasp the power of something, or someone, who is unseen. But to the woman who sleeps alone, who walks through her days without the physical companionship of a husband, this divine presence is not a vague concept or poetic idea. It is real. It is the comfort that fills the silence of an empty room, the strength that steadies her hands when they are weary, the assurance that she is not overlooked or forgotten. There is something profoundly powerful about knowing that you are seen, even when no one else is watching. Human nature longs for recognition, for affection, for connection. And yet, in the absence of earthly companionship, there exists a deeper connection, a relationship that does not fade with distance, does not falter with time, and does not change based on appearance or status. It is the unwavering nearness of a God who walks beside her, who sits with her in the quiet moments, who listens to the words she cannot speak aloud. This divine presence is not bound by walls. It does not depend on whether she is in a crowded church or a silent living room. It is there in the early morning when the alarm goes off and the day begins, in the long hours of work, in the quiet of a dinner table set for one. She may feel invisible to the world, but to him she is fully known. He sees the way she keeps showing up even when it's hard. He sees her faithfulness in the small things. He sees her tears, her hopes, her resilience, and he honors them. The comfort of this presence is not always loud. It does not shout over her pain or drown out her questions. Often it comes like a whisper, a quiet knowing that she is not alone. It is the peace that descends when she finally exhales after holding her breath all day. It is the warmth that wraps around her heart when loneliness threatens to creep in. It is the reassurance that even in the unknown, she is held by hands that will never let go. There are moments when she may long for the tangible, the embrace, the voice, the shared moments with someone beside her. And those longings are real. But even in the midst of unmet desires, the presence of God becomes a sanctuary, not because it erases the longing, but because it meets her there. He is not threatened by her questions, not surprised by her emotions. He invites her to bring them all, to lay them at his feet, to be honest, to be raw. And in return, he offers a love that never withdraws, never wavers, never grows tired. This love, this divine support, does not just console, it empowers. It reminds her that her life has meaning not because of her relationship status, but because of who she belongs to. She is not wandering aimlessly through life, but walking a path with purpose, guided by a shepherd who knows every step before she takes it. He is the one who opens doors she cannot open, who closes the ones that would harm her, who protects her from what she cannot see and provides in ways she never expected. Sometimes this support comes in quiet miracles. A need met just in time, an unexpected word of encouragement, a moment of clarity in confusion. Other times it comes in the strength to endure what feels unendurable. She may not always feel strong, but she has learned that strength is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of grace in the middle of it, and that grace is not her own doing. It flows from the one who walks with her. The world may measure success in milestones, marriage, children, accolades, possessions, but divine presence measures value differently. It sees the heart, it honors faithfulness in private, it delights in humility, in compassion, in quiet acts of courage. The woman who rises day after day and chooses to love, to give, to serve, to hope, she is not unseen in heaven's eyes. She is treasured. When others question her life, why she's still alone, why she hasn't followed the expected path, she can rest in the knowledge that her worth is not up for debate. It has already been declared by the one who formed her. He does not withhold love until she fits a mold. He does not wait for her to be chosen by someone else before he chooses her. She is already chosen, already loved, already called by name. This divine presence does not merely sit beside her, it dwells within her. It becomes the voice of wisdom when she seeks direction, the source of hope when circumstances feel hopeless. It is not passive, it is active. It is the fire that fuels her passion, the oil that keeps her lamp burning, the hand that lifts her when she falls. There is nothing she faces alone, not a decision, not a disappointment, not a dream. And because of this, she does not have to strive to prove her worth. She no longer needs to fear being left behind. She does not need to fill every silence with noise or every space with someone. She can rest in the truth that she is already deeply known and deeply loved. This gives her a freedom many never experience, a freedom to live honestly, to walk with purpose, to love without fear. Even when the path is unclear, she knows she is not walking it alone. The divine presence goes before her, stands beside her, and guards her from behind. This is the support that sustains her. It is not fleeting. It is not based on performance. It is eternal, unshakable, and freely given. And in the face of life's uncertainties, that presence becomes her certainty. She may have no one to share her bed, but she is never without companionship. She may eat her meals alone, but she is never without conversation. In fact, some of her richest communion happens in the quiet, when she lifts her heart in prayer, when she whispers her needs and listens for the reply. Her relationship with God is not second best, it is central. It is not a backup plan, it is the foundation. From it flows all her peace, her joy, her wisdom, her courage. And through this relationship, she learns to love herself rightly, not with arrogance, but with assurance. She is not defined by who desires her, but by who designed her. She is not limited by her circumstances, but liberated by grace. She begins to see herself through the eyes of the one who created her, who calls her beloved, who sees past every flaw and still calls her worthy. This unseen support manifests in her life in ways that others may not recognize, but that she knows are divine. The right door opens at the right time. The strength comes when she's about to give up. The peace descends when anxiety would have taken over. The friend calls just when she needed a voice. These are not coincidences. They are kindnesses from above, constant reminders that she is not doing life alone. Over time, she becomes more attuned to this presence. She begins to trust it more. She listens for it in the quiet moments and leans into it when the noise of the world grows too loud. It becomes her guiding light, her compass, her anchor. And in that connection, she finds a deeper intimacy than many ever experience in human relationships, because it is not based on surface things. It is soul to soul, spirit to spirit. And when life brings storms, as it always does, she is not tossed to and fro. She may bend, but she will not break. Her roots go deep. Her faith has been forged in fire. Her heart is held in hands that will never let her go. This is not optimism, it is assurance. This is not denial, it is trust. She knows who walks with her, and that knowledge changes everything. To those looking from the outside, her life may seem quiet, even empty, but she knows better. She knows that every moment, every step, every breath is accompanied. She knows that she is not walking through life unnoticed. She knows that while others may see only the absence, she lives in the abundance of an invisible presence that fills every space with meaning. This is her hidden strength. This is the source of her resilience, not the praise of others, not the fulfillment of cultural milestones, but the daily companionship of a God who knows her, who sees her, who empowers her. This is how she keeps going. This is why she can smile in the face of uncertainty, why she can hope even when nothing changes, why she can be generous even when her hands feel empty. She walks through life not as a woman abandoned, but as a woman accompanied. Not as one forgotten, but as one fiercely loved. Not as one lacking, but as one constantly filled. And though others may not see the support she receives, she feels it every day. In every breath, in every decision, in every moment of surrender, the divine presence remains, faithful, kind, and constant. This is her comfort when the world feels harsh. This is her value when the world calls her less. This is her unseen support when life feels overwhelming. And in this presence she finds all she needs, not only to survive, but to flourish.